Welcome to What You Missed When You Didn't Exist. I'm Corbett and I am 52.
I'm Lucy, and I'm 22.
And we are talking about what Lucy missed when she didn't exist. And what you missed, really, you technically didn't miss, but it's been different. Playgrounds. Playgrounds were different when I was younger. Shocking.
Yeah, weren't you just playing with twigs at that point?
Well, yes. To be fair, I really don't think kids have changed at all. I think the equipment that kids play on have changed, but kids still do the same dumb stuff they did before. If you only have twigs and rocks, yeah, that's what you're going to play with. I can say when I was a kid, most playground equipment was metal pipes. In fact, it was mostly metal pipes and a few things that were they would move. They had moving parts to them, but they were about as dangerous as most things.
Okay.
I think the most fun thing and the most dangerous thing, I think. Well, I don't know. Just perspective wise, probably the merry-go-round is the one I would go with as crazy dangerous.
Yeah, I see that.
And it's a wheel on its side, just so anybody who's never seen one. It's a metal wheel on its side with handrails to hold on to. Typically, you'd kind of lean into it, and the way you would do it. I mean, the way it was intended to do was, oh, I'll put my children on this lazy Susan, as it were, and I will listfully spin it, and my child will go, wee. Now, what happens in reality is you get a friend with a mini bike, put the tire up on the side of the lazy Susan, and then rev it all you want.
Oh my goodness.
And anybody who goes wee is usually flinging off into the space somewhere in the middle, and hopefully not into the guy revving the mini bike. Because once it gets past like 10, 15 miles an hour, that thing is a death machine.
Oh my gosh. So really safe.
Well, yeah. One thing that really hasn't changed at all, still currently, I've seen this swings. Swings still
That's true.
exist. They existed way before my time, and they exist now. The difference now, I would say, is that there's a lot more like softer ground to land on. Because ultimately, what happens is not, again, the intention is, oh, we'll put the child on this seat and we will push it listfully and they will go wee. And what happens is a child on their own is like they either want to get pushed, so you get stuck pushing this child and they go wee, or they'll be old enough that they can go really high and then leap from the apex point of the swing out into the air and then land on the ground. Typically filled with rocks or sand, which is nice and matted down. Nowadays, I think it's a spongier
Yeah.
material, wood chips, which I'm sure are safe, and rubber, also like bits of tire or something. They're like all rubbery
Yeah.
now. But those have been pretty dangerous. I think I remember swinging myself like high enough that I could see the bar of the swing below me as I was coming back up. Because you get pretty good at swinging that stuff. And of course, the classic all metal slide from my day. Typically, I don't think I've ever seen one over 15 feet into the air. Like you go up 15 feet and then slide down in a straight
Uh-huh.
slide. Typically, two or three friends at once
Oh, jeez.
because that's fun. I have heard of people having like 30-foot slides and kids like waiting in a line all the way up the
Oh,
ladder
jeez.
because you climb up the ladder and then shoosh down the sluice. And when they invented the bumps, I think was the scarier part because then you'd come down on this 20-foot drop and just like boom, boom, and jump into the air, and you might land on the slide when you come back. And of course, you're going so fast, you shoot like probably 10 feet out the end of the sluice. So, some dangerous stuff. I think, of course, classic and comical is the teeter totter.
Oh, yeah.
This is a simple bar lifting up a piece of wood, one person on the other end, another person on the other end, and use each other's weight to counterbalance and go up and down and up and down. I think nowadays they're probably like 4 to 5 feet long. When I was a kid, they're about 20 feet
Oh.
out. I want to say, because you would go way into the air. You would definitely, if you fell off, you would get hurt. And you would typically get 3 to 4 friends. on each end and try to outweigh the other side. What normally happens is the big fat kid gets stuck on one side and then the other kids are getting lifted up by them. And of course, the comedy of it is the big fat kid gets his revenge by jumping off suddenly.
Oh, jeez.
I never doubted it. Not for a second. He would get hurt so painfully bad. And of course, there's always the kid in the middle who's like, I'm going to get in the middle and try to balance as it goes up and down. And then they fall off and it gets hurt. And that's really, I think, where it all comes down to. I was looking just because I wanted to look up, like, what were playgrounds like before me to know what happened before I existed.
Uh-huh.
And one of the popular things before they invented slides, they would put up 2x4s. Two by fours, roughly about a foot and a half apart, and the children would put their hands on the 2x4s and their ankles on the sides of the 2x4s and slide down this 20-foot, nothing in the middle,
Oh.
two wooden rails with their hands. I can already tell you, like, I feel lucky to have a flashing hot metal casing to slide my push on
Oh.
over two wooden rails with nothing in between. So, yeah, we're pretty okay. Jungle gyms were all metal pipes, usually in 2 foot by 2 foot square cubes, stacked on top of one another. So you'd climb through these things like a nest. I think there were a few other silly things here and there that I'd come up with. Go, oh, that's pretty cool. And kids just like climbing on stuff. It's really just the shtick. If you find a construction site, that would be an equivalent to any kid's playground because it's something they can climb across, walk across, balance on, and fall off and get hurt.
Oh, jeez.
It's about normal, really. Now, since we're in the future, nowadays everything is what, plastic coated, extra rubber sealed.
Well, okay. How do you remember any kids specifically getting injured on the playground when you were a kid?
Me?
Yes.
No, me.
Okay.
I remember me getting okay. Let me tell you about my experience on the child's
Okay.
playground because we didn't have a ton of playground equipment at my
Mm.
school. We had tires. We had these tires they would give us, and we would roll them back and forth. They were car tires,
Okay.
and we had one big tractor tire that we would try to lift and couldn't because we were like, I don't know, kindergarten, first grade. But they had bushes along the building. The gardener or whoever took care of probably the maintenance guy because I'm sure there wasn't a gardener back then. It was like
Mm.
76, 77. He went through and cut all of the bushes at an angle, so like the way you'd make a makeshift spear.
Okay. Sure.
So we came together, all the kids came together and like, hey, it'd be fun if we could put this tire up on this bush and then climb into the tire and then swing it somehow.
Yeah.
Because as kids, you do try to figure out ways to hurt yourself on purpose
Mhm. Of course.
with the intent that it will be fun. So we got this, two or three of us got this tire up into these spear stick things. And I climbed up to the top because, as every kid does, you climb on the top of whatever there is.
Yeah.
And somebody yanked on the tire and I slid backwards and started sliding off and one of those spear sticks went right up into my armpit and I was dangling on the side of the shrub until one of the teachers came and pulled me off of it. I had to get a stitches and everything and mom showed no, it was my grandmother who showed up and picked me up. And then mom showed up to get me from the doctors because they had to stitch me
Oh,
up.
jeez.
So, yeah,
Okay.
kids get hurt.
So I went to school and kids only got hurt outside of school, like doing their own extreme sports or whatever it is that kids at my school did. On the playground,
Mm,
no one really got hurt beyond, like, I don't know, running, tripping, and getting your own, like, road rash or
mm,
splinters from the wood chips, which I think most playgrounds have gotten rid of wood chips and replaced it with either turf or, yeah, like that spongy tire rubber material because you're trying to make it
mm,
safe for kids, but also that also helps students with disabilities. So it's promoting more like ableness within the playgrounds. And I feel
Hmm.
like more of the playgrounds are focused on students still learning or like kids still learning at the playground because they'll have like tic-tac-toe that you can spin around and play, or try to play on these fake drums that exist that they just made a mold out of, or they'll have a little like mock dining car so you can try to play pretend, I guess. I think it is more kid centered and kid focused rather than, okay, let's give these kids a yard to play in and they can do whatever. I guess it's helping to feed their imagination a little bit, maybe.
Maybe. I mean, I could see it, and definitely having stuff makes it a lot more interesting to kind of put you in a position to do
Mhm.
something. Although there is something to be said by having nothing,
That's true.
because then you have to do something with nothing, and you wind up like I think most of our we had pine needles everywhere because pine needles fall off in the
Mhm.
wintertime in Texas. And in East Texas, you had just pine needles piled up everywhere. So we figured out that if you raked the pine needles by hand and pushed them into piles or lines, we could sort of make play areas. Like we would make whole houses and blueprints and stuff out of these blank spots in the ground where we pushed all the pine needles back. And of course, then there was fallen trees and stuff we would go climb on and dig across. But there wasn't a ton of equipment. We when we first got seesaws, I think that was like crazy fun. Everybody was just always lined up to get on those
Mhm.
things, and you'd wind up with 10 kids on each side. We had a lot of playground games, you know, Red Rover and tug of war and throw pine cones at one another. No, it was just so many dumb things we would come up with trying to make stuff
Mhm.
happen because we had this sort of play time on the grounds for about seems like an hour before lunch and an hour in the
Mhm.
evening, probably before when we were waiting on parents to show up because parents would come by and pick you up or you're waiting for a bus to
Mhm.
go. But we didn't have a lot of equipment. So, as much as I can say, like, oh, the big metal slide, I really don't remember seeing any of those until I was probably in like third grade. Well, swings have always existed. Swings have always been around, but the swings you had to wait for because there was probably what 100 and something kids and 10
Mm.
swings.
Yeah.
Like, okay,
That's fair.
the best you can do is like yell at them and say jump, and hope they get hurt and can't do it again.
Oh, they changed swings though. I think they've covered up the chains with rubber so that way people don't get like pinched or caught up in the chains on swings.
That's not about the chain. It was about jumping, and that was where kids would probably risk themselves more than anything else, swinging super high and jumping, and that's never going to change.
Yeah, that's fair. What, you never did the spinnies? The little tornado guys, whatever it was.
Oh well, yeah, yeah, you do those.
That's about the chain.
It was always weird though. Yeah, I guess. But see, I remember you as a child. You would climb. I mean, they had these fancy playground areas for you guys to play on, and we lived right near the school playground, so we could just walk over and
Yeah.
use it. They had these clever, plastic covered play areas with stuff for you to work on, and yet you and your brother would still climb on top or the outside of the housing that you're not supposed to do. And you guys would do all the same risky stuff that I would do as a
Yeah.
kid. Just that you did it with the safe equipment.
Yeah.
So I don't know how safe any of that equipment really was.
Well, landing on gravel would hurt a lot more than landing on some bouncy rubber.
That's true. Toughens you up more.
Sure. You can see how well that'll go over. How many bones have you broken versus how many I've broken?
I think me and you have broken the same. No, no, wait. You haven't
Y-
broken any bones. It's your
yep.
brother. Okay.
Meh.
Well, fine.
I've broken
Well,
0.
then you're due some broken bones.
But it's not gonna happen. Playgrounds are too safe.
I don't know if they're that safe. I really just don't think they're that safe. I mean, it's not a matter of all these dangerous playgrounds. It's just that kids Kids will try to do things
That's true.
regardless. They are going to find something. I mean, I remember as a kid trying to figure out, like, I wonder, I'd found, we found a bullet, like a live bullet out in the woods somewhere. And we were trying to figure out a way to hammer it to make it go off.
Oh my gosh.
And you know what? I know this is hard to imagine, but that's not a very smart idea.
No, not really.
But kids do that sort of thing. You're like, I wonder how we do this. I wonder. I mean, eventually, you just kind of hope that either an adult's going to come by and tell them they're idiots and take the thing away, or that something will happen and they'll hopefully survive
Mhm.
it. That's about the best you can hope. But I'd wander out in the woods a lot because there was a lot of woods, and I came across a lot of dangerous animals and a lot of dangerous situations that I luckily passed through for good reasons or bad reasons. I don't know.
Fair enough, I guess.
Well, I presume you did something similar, and I just don't know about it.
What, going into the woods randomly?
Well, just going off and doing something that, in retrospect, you're like, wow, I shouldn't have done that.
Mm, no. You guys
Oh,
think
you were
I
just
was the
so
devil
good.
child, but I was not compared to literally everyone else in the town.
I didn't think you were the devil child, just the daughter of the devil.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. You've little faith. You thought I was up to the most rambunctious shenanigans, and yet I did nothing.
That you were caught for.
uh,
No, it's okay.
Whatever. I am the most rambunctious out of all of your kids, though.
That's probably true.
It's kind of sad. Nah. Playgrounds, they're fun. But I do think that it's nice that they're more disability friendly or ableist friendly, which I think is nice.
Well, I will say this: the disability friendly. I think it works on a lot of levels. Just because I will say the playgrounds when you were growing up, they had like instead of here's a ladder, climb 40 feet in the air and go figure it out.
Yeah.
It's instead it's like here's a ramp that you can walk up to the top of the thing,
Mhm.
or if you had a wheelchair or some type of walking device you had to use, but also for like little kids
Mhm.
they could go that way. So that was one thing I did feel a little left out as a kid. If there was a big kid playground, there was a big difference. You were not tall enough to ride the ride. Basically, if you couldn't reach that first rung, you weren't going to play.
Mhm.
That was kind of like the jungle gym to get on. You had to be tall enough to reach that first rung and then be strong enough to pull yourself up. So you were immediately cut out by age alone, the age and
Yeah.
size. Your playground, I remember in middle school had one of those death machines too, the spinning top,
Oh
and
yeah.
it's the same idea as the merry-go-round. I just remembered that. But it was like hangers. You had to be tall enough to jump on the hanger, and you'd always ask me to lift you up to it because you were never tall enough. And then I would get it spinning, and you would get terrified, and I would be afraid you were gonna fling off because it was right by the fence.
Yeah.
I was afraid you were gonna come around and just whip right into that fence and smack. Then your mother would be all like, "I told you to be careful with him." Oh, she's fine.
No, but Riley did fly off.
I feel like he did a couple times.
Well, there was one time, I think it was him or it was George, but he flew off but didn't land on his feet. He like slid backwards and got like wood chips all up in his nose because he like landed and flew backwards at the same time. And it was a bad day.
Yeah, there was always a bad day. Well, you were thrown from a horse at a birthday party.
Oh, yeah. It's not a playground, though. They don't keep horses on
That
playgrounds.
wasn't a
What?
playground. You've had bad days too, and you've been thrown from things from one reason or another and just gotten lucky.
It's my dumb luck, dude. Don't know what to tell you.
So I guess everybody just be as safe as you can.
Yep.
This has been what you missed when you didn't exist, and playgrounds still exist, but they're different.
Be careful, but have fun. Be a kid.